Good afternoon, everyone. I really appreciate everyone joining in. This is our East Ascension Drainage meeting for September 1st, 2020. All members are present. I'd like to get our Mr. Ron Salvard to give the invocation, followed by the pledge, please.
And Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, and first and foremost, our brothers and sisters in Lake Charles and northern central Louisiana that were hit by Laura, please be with them and comfort them and let them know that we all are here to support and see them through, get them back on their feet. And secondly, Father, I pray that you come into the Parish family. As everyone has heard, we lost an employee that is very dear to us. And we ask that the Lord bless him and comfort him and be with his family, and know that we all love him, and we pray that he gets his ultimate eternity. And with that, just pray that everybody is thorough in our decisions and debates tonight, get the strength to have good wisdom in what we decide to do here tonight. So with that, in the heavenly name, amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the
under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Thank you for that. I would move to our secretary, Ms. Liz, is going to read our agenda.
Approval of July 20th, 2020 meeting minutes. FEMA HMGP 4277DRLA project number 0062, Parish Grant 2003F, EACGDD number 1, EAD 20009. Approval of selection committee recommendation for engineering services to upgrade Conway Bayou Pump Station. Discussion of possible CEA between Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development and East Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District 1 for roadside ditch maintenance. Approval to purchase and install box culverts at 41373 Cemetery Road in conjunction with Wallace Acres Drainage Improvements Project. Approval to supply and install box culverts at 43422 and at 43444 Norwood Road in replacement of rail core bridges for drainage improvements. Approval to remove rail core bridges and replace with box culverts on Merritt Evans Road and on Marty Burat property in conjunction with Burat Ditch Drainage Improvements Project. Charlotte Avenue culverts. Request to upsize culverts and replace all of the culverts and catch basins, or dig open ditches and replace driveway culverts only for residents. Approval to move forward with task order for engineering design from Madura Group in the amount of $200,450,075 for surge pump station. Approval to renew and extend contract with On-Grade Construction for roadside ditch maintenance. Approval to renew and extend contract with On-Grade Construction for setting and the installation of culverts. Approval to renew the following drainage contracts for surveying services not to exceed $200,000 with BFM Corporation, Brian Hammett and Associates, Earls and Associates, Quality Engineering and Surveying, T. Baker Smith. Approval to renew the following drainage contracts for wetland delineation and permitting, not to exceed $150,000. Elos Environmental and Providence.
Thank you, Ms. Liz, for that. With that, we'll go into the 15-minute or the public comment period, and for anyone who's wanting to call in on any agenda item.
We have one person in person for public comment if you want to take that person now or if you want to wait. It's up to the chair.
Sure, we can go ahead and take it now.
We have Mr. Larry Blanchard to speak on item F, Charlotte Avenue culverts, request to upside culverts and replace all of the culverts and catch basins or dig open ditches and replace driveway culverts only for residents.
My name is Larry Blanchard. I live on Charlotte Avenue, and for the last 3 to 4 years, we've been having a backup of water, almost flooding my house. Gets onto the carport, gets in my shop about 2 inches, and our culverts are 15-inch culverts. And we had a survey done and turned all that information over to the drainage engineer, and he recommended a minimum size of 24-inch culverts instead of the 15 that we have. So I'm asking to upsize all my culverts, catch basins on our frontage, because in 2016 through 2020, anytime we get 2 to 3 inches of rain, sudden rain, the water starts backing up and it gets under my carport and almost floods my house. So I've taken off 3 times this year alone just to sandbag around my house and put out pumps. And the reason this backwater is coming, the businesses behind us, after this survey was done, they said all that water is coming from the businesses behind us that put parking lots and raised their property. So this is looking from my shop out to Charlotte Avenue. This is my front yard and my neighbor's yard. As you can see, that's probably a little over ankle deep. And can you go to the next picture, please?
Yes.
So every year we have put in a ticket, and the parish comes out, they dig out the ditches, and they blow all the culverts. And but we still have trouble. This is standing at my driveway, looking parallel to Charlotte Avenue. You can't even see my neighbors. You can't see. I'm standing in my driveway, which is a little above ankle deep. That water is not flowing. It's not getting through those culverts. So they say it's blockage. I had the parish come out every year for the last 4 years, blew out culverts, dug out ditches, and they just came this week before the hurricane and did the same thing again, dug out ditches and blew out culverts. And I talked to the worker, and he did not find any pluggage in any of my culverts. And this is the picture in my front yard looking towards 73. That's my culverts. The water's running over the top of all the culverts, and in my next door neighbor's yard too, running over the top of her culverts also. So my thoughts were, we got permits from the parish. They told us 15-inch culverts. We put them down. We couldn't cover our ditches until a parish inspector came out, looked at it, and approved it. This is my picture of my side yard. They approved it, then I could backfill. So all this was done following the parish's approval process. So I'm asking for the parish to increase my culvert size so we don't have this backup. Now Ron came after they did the digging out the ditches and blowing out the culverts and took pictures. Those pictures are probably going to show a little bit of water and a good flow. That day on the 27th at 9 o'clock when he was there, it was only maybe an inch of rain within an hour. So yes, and it was a drizzle when he showed up. So it was a light rain and it was flowing good. The culvert down at the close to 73 to Color Wheel Daycare, that culvert was fine too. It's just when we have 2 to 3 inches of rain, a sudden rain, like an afternoon thunderstorm, that's when I start flooding and getting worried. So I'm just asking that we can do something to help the flooding or help the backwater. Have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. We'll take it up when we get to that agenda item. We appreciate your comments and your pictures.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchard.
Thank you.
Okay, we will go into the remainder of the public comment period. I have 5 minutes left on that. I will put up a slide, and if we have anything after that, when we return, we'll let you know.
Thank you.
Okay, we are back and we have no public comments.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. before we move on, let's go ahead to number 4, the acceptance of the minutes of the July 20th meeting.
Motion. Second.
Moved by Mr. Ogeron, second by Ms. Terry. Under the chairman's report, just want to let everyone know that really appreciate everything that everyone's doing, helping our neighbors, helping everyone out with the storm that went through. And we were very lucky. So just want to thank everyone for what they're doing. And before we get to the drainage report, if the parish president has anything, I'd like for him to go ahead now.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I do have a flash flooding presentation, a real quick presentation to make. As y'all know, we've prepared for 2 major storms, and then we've had 2 flash flooding issues to where we were unprepared without any notification. Current weather channels and that we pay attention to, as well as other areas, had no indication that we were going to receive 5 to 7 inches in a 2 to 3 hour period. And therefore we've had drainage issues in certain areas and flash flooding in certain areas. The most recent flash flooding event, as we recall, will be the end of July, when we had over a dozen homes in the Park Vista in Gonzales, city of Gonzales area flood. And so we began to take a look as how can we protect ourselves from these flash flooding events with major storms. We know they're coming, but with these storms, how do we get better prepared for flash flooding? So we began to look in this, and me and a lot of Drainage Director Ron Savoy, including other drainage officials, began to sit and brainstorm and look in to see exactly what we can do in order to achieve that goal. We also took a field trip to Jefferson Parish and looked at their pumping system. They have a very extensive pumping system and a very technology improvements that help them know when to pump, where to pump. And so we're going to talk about a few of those things this evening. So the first one would be the Scada system. And that is a technology improvement to allow us to look at what's going on with drainage all over the parish. So we would know where the locks at Fish and Frog, inside and outside of those locks, those elevations. We would also know in real time what the Sorrento pumping station's doing, what the Henderson pumping station's doing, what other drainage bodies, gravity, whether it be Muddy Creek, Welsh Gully, or Panama, or Conway. We could put real-time sensors on all those to better direct our crews, as well as how do we defend against these type systems. Scada as well as water elevations would also be set in rain gauges, so we could determine in real time as it's raining how much rain we're getting in specific areas. And in that July event, that was one of those issues where we were in a drainage meeting and we're looking out the window and the parking lot's flooding. And it wasn't until then until we started all of us getting on the phone, calling around to say, look, we got to turn the pumps on. There was just no indication that we were going to get that amount of rainfall in that amount of short time. So these rain gauges would have alerts, and then they would send us indicating that, look, you got to pay a little more attention to this type storm, and that would be built into the Scada system. Next slide, John. And so this just shows a little bit of those layers of technology on how that's set up. We can go to the next slide. So very similar to the ones that had the benefit of going to the Jefferson Parish pumping station on that particular, we saw their Scada system and how upgraded it was, the benefits, and talking to their staff, how they utilize that as a tool to get ahead of storms up to the minute. And so that allows them. They also can start the pumps from a centralized location instead of actually being at the pumping stations, and then monitored it at several different parts throughout the parish. So you could simply have a crew monitoring Sorrento from Marvin Bro and vice versa, as well as Henderson, and any other pumping station that may be in the future. So this is a technology that would be really beneficial, I believe, in helping us get real-time information. Next slide. So with that, we began to look at the weather reports. How do we anticipate when we need the pumping station manned? And, you know, what we would do is put not only when, but the current situation is a employee that's called out to the pumps must go to the barn, clock in, then drives to the pumping station to begin work. We would like to set up chrono stations in the pumping stations to avoid that first part. That would save us time. It would initiate the pumps early, and then that way they can go ahead and clock in and keep their time at the pumps. This would be part of that technology upgrade. Next slide. So whenever we got rain chances, say greater than 80% or greater than 70%, what we possibly need to think about and recommend is having a standby crew at the Marvin Brook pumping station for these rain events. It would require some overtime, but it would be a minimal crew that could start warming up the pumps until other crew could get there. That would save us time in getting, especially in flash flood events, getting that water down in our canals to hopefully catch up. Because once those canals reach a certain elevation, the ditches no longer flow into those canals and begin to back up into the subdivision. So initiating those pumps early and having a crew on standby only when weather would indicate it, which is maybe greater than 80%, 90% chance, whatever we feel comfortable with, is having an extra crew there beyond their 40-hour work week. That way, if we had a rain event on Saturday, instead of us having to catch up, we would have a crew there already on Saturday if it's predicting to have that type of percentage rainfall. Next slide. Again, this is just another aerial of all the pumps on at the Marvin Brook pumping station. Next slide. So talking about the Scada system, what we noted from Jefferson Parish was their rain gauges. They had up-to-minute rain gauges throughout the parish. This would be very beneficial in these flash flooding type events, whether we're getting heavy rainfalls in Prairieville, whether we're getting heavy rainfalls in the Conway Panama Basin, City of Gonzales, Dutchtown. This would give us up-to-the-minute accurate information, allowing us to make quicker decisions on how we can better turn and utilize our drainage system. Next slide. Here's just a real-time gauge monitoring, real-time notifications, one of those rain gauges. So what we see here is what we call dry detention. And so what we have in a lot of subdivisions is detention ponds that are full of water. And so the only capacity you have is from that water table to the top of the pond. This is a scenario where we would have dry detention in order to have more capacity. We would have to really look at the different, not watershed necessarily, but pump station basins in order to significantly know where these would be most beneficial. For example, me and Ron Salva were looking at Muddy Creek. There is some ponds there on the upper part of Muddy Creek that would be able to do some dry detention there and manipulate that water level, therefore capturing that rainwater until Muddy Creek drains down and then slowly releasing it after the rain event. Next slide. Here's another indication of a dry detention with a slow flow drain. So these would create additional capacity for those type of particular rain events, and we would manipulate those levels. We're also, look, you're moving a little too fast. We're also looking at the Courthouse Pond and doing just the same and manipulating that due to the flash flooding we had in Park Vista. And so being able to get that water out of that subdivision quickly and into that Courthouse Pond and manipulate those levels, not to go dry, but in order to bring it down to increase capacity for flash flooding events. All right, next slide. And in addition to that, as me and Ron drive around the parish, we noticed that we have certain side of ditches clean, and this is even on our major canals, whether it's Black Buck or many of the others. We don't have easements on both sides. And so we're not able to maintain those ditches and canals because of the lack of easements and servitudes. So what we're suggesting, and we'll go to the next slide, is that we take a comprehensive approach and start getting a database of all of our drainage servitudes on each of our major drainage structures first, and then on our minors, creating a GIS layer in order for us to know where we have servitude, what gaps exist between servitudes, where we need to expand servitudes, and we approach it like we do in Move Ascension and go out and get right-of-way for these drainage structures, whether it be Black Bayou, New River, Francois, whatever the circumstance where we lack servitudes and have gaps, we could go out and get that, and that would help our off-road drainage maintenance, including the ability to widen our ditches and canals, as discussed a little bit later. So this is a very important element. It starts with that database. We would probably have to go hire a company to do that. We don't have the resources in-house to do that type of abstracting, but we would slowly start to build that database. The other benefit would be the GIS system. Real estate agents, property owners could know where not to build. With all the situation where we have small sheds and structures in our drainage servitudes, this would be on and be labeled as a non-building site, and then that would hopefully deter people from building in our drainage servitudes, causing us issues with maintenance and other issues like that. All right, next slide. All right, so in going through and looking at our servitudes, we also noticed that some of our size of our ditches were inadequate. So as we begin to decide, what does our drainage look like 10 years from now, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, we begin to know that our ditches simply cannot handle the runoff that it used to. Next slide. So what we would like to do is start identifying what ditches that we need to widen. So if we know with the original FOLET plan, especially on Bayou Francois, that plan would reduce from a 50-year to a 25-year. Well, that 25 years has come and gone, and now it's somewhat inadequate for the future. So as we begin to get a list of what ditches that and where we need to acquire servitude and start to widen for future capacity, looking beyond and looking beyond the current and stop fixing issues and problems, but preparing for the future and avoiding those problems altogether while increasing capacity and use of our ditches. Next slide. So this is something we've talked about recently, and this would be a tool that we're currently working on, and it's modeling. And so this is relatively a new tool, and this is something that has extreme benefit, but oftentimes the H&H modeling 2D, often 1D works just as well, but and it's cheaper and faster to do. But the 2D allows you to look for expansive areas and start to build a database with H&H modeling. Now, there's some points that I want to make here. Next slide. So the administration, and go to the next slide. I think that's a little bit better. There you go, hold right there. So the administration is currently working on what this structure of modeling tool needs to look like. So it's too important of a tool to simply just hire an engineering company or without first deciding what will they be used for and what is the pricing structure. So you would end up hopefully using this in our planning department, using this in our drainage department, using this at the planning commission. Therefore, you would need multiple cost structures, and we would need to know exactly what those deliverables are. For example, we have 8 terabytes of data. We don't even know what to do with it. Those deliverables weren't clearly defined, and we have 8 terabytes that we have spent a ton of money on, and we have zero way to utilize it here in the drainage department. So these things need to be structured. They need to be talked about and before they are initiated, so we know exactly what that price structure and model looks like for the administration and the drainage department to adequately use it, as well as the planning department and other entities in parish government. So we're working on that, hopefully to come back to y'all with some decision-making processes on that and take a little closer look at our H&H modeling. Next slide. So as we wrap up here, and this is just an example of an outlined concrete ditch. There's a lot of this going on in East Baton Rouge right now. Next slide. But not only in East Baton Rouge, but in our city of Gonzales. This is a concrete ditch in the city of Gonzales. This is something the Drainage Department has assisted the city of Gonzales with. This does a couple things. It speeds runoff and it reduces maintenance. There's a lot of maintenance that we do in a lot of subdivisions, whereas if we concreted the ditches would minimize that and we would have better drainage as well as less maintenance. Next slide. And so this is right here in the city. I think we could start looking at that. That would certainly improve us, freeing up our crews to work in different areas. This is certainly a solution with the new courthouse in Park Vista and in the city of Gonzales to help speed water out of that subdivision and quit getting reduced by heavy vegetation and other things like that. This can be utilized all over the parish. This is in contrast with what we currently do with riprap. This would be a little more of a thing. The problem with riprap is we have a little bit more of a grass issue growing up through the riprap, requires a little bit additional maintenance. So we'll have to outweigh that cost benefit, but certainly it works in the city of Gonzales, and something right here we can take a look at right here at home and make better decisions on what we want to do in subdivisions outside, as well as other drainage structures outside of the city and in our parish. So that's my presentation. A lot of things for a lot of us to think about and look at. I'll be happy to answer any questions, although there's a lot more information to be gotten here. But I'll be happy to answer any, Chairman, if you would like. It's up to you.
Appreciate that, Parish President. Mr. Corey, you have something?
Yes, thanks for calling on me. Mr. President, the first topic you discussed, the Scada warning system, is that a proper Scada? Scada, yes, sir. What's the cost for something like that?
We would have to go out and we could do some preliminary cost evaluations, but we can certainly have a company come and do a presentation. I don't have those costs with me today, but we can certainly set up presentations and what's capable in that arena, because that's getting into technology and requires some instrumentation and some other things, but we can certainly do that.
Because I'm just thinking, the conversations we were having at last night's Utilities Committee meeting, and the millions that we're hoping to be able to receive as a result of transferring sewer. It would be wonderful to be able to use some of those funds to help us improve our drainage with a lot of the issues that you brought before us this evening. So I think that's something for all of us to continue to look at, is the benefits of moving forward with part of that proposal that was given to us last night, and allowing us to utilize this for proper drainage.
Off the subject.
Go ahead, Mr. Robert.
I just wanted to point out that this is from last night's meeting. We have a lot of stuff to do tonight. I don't really think sewer is on the agenda tonight.
Appreciate the comment. Anyone else but the Parish President's flash flooding report?
I wish to address Mr. Robert's false accusation there, because that is a false accusation. I was merely commenting that we have the potential to have money brought into this parish that would allow us to support some of these plans that Mr. Quintmore has brought to us. There's no point of order. There's no exception to anything that was discussed in this matter. Mr. Robert, I'd appreciate it if you take back your point of order.
Appreciate it, Mr. Orgeron. Let's move on. Mr. Aaron Lawler, you had something?
Yes, I do. A couple of things. I've got a whole list of notes I've been taking. Everything that I'm hearing seems to need to be part of a comprehensive plan. And that is what we're lacking here. When we're talking about driving around and looking at things, I think that's good, but that's not technically sound. We need the H&H modeling to be done. Right now, we have and this number may not be exact, around 70 to 75% of the parish has already been modeled. We have a contract out that we're able to task the rest of the modeling to get the rest of the parish done. And that's extremely important to the northern part of the parish because that's the area that's not done. And that area needs modeling desperately. So that's one of my concerns is we seem to be in this holding pattern. We're not going to get this done when we have the opportunity and the ability to do that immediately. Tonight, in fact, we have somebody under contract that we can task out modeling the rest of the parish. So part of my question is, at the last meeting, we had talked about moving forward with a master plan for drainage and the floodplain master plan. And Mr. President, you said you would get with the finance and determine if we had that money in the budget. What is the result of that?
Well, looking at the contract, we discovered that the modeling structure is not set up correctly, and that needs to be resolved, including it appears to be a floodplain management component of that, which requires greater restrictions. We don't even have our flood ordinance correct. We have trouble enforcing it. It's been a constant problem. This is something that Councilman Melanson and Chairman Dempsey Lambert we have discussed at length. We don't even have that correct. So what we don't want to do is initiate a contract without clear deliverables as well as cost. I think we have the chance and opportunity to save a few $100,000 in doing that and better defining our deliverables. And I would encourage, saving money is what we should always do when we are dealing with taxpayer dollars, and we have the opportunity to do that. So again, this structure was not in place with that contract appropriately with the different departments, the cost structure, and everything necessary. So that all that has to be defined. So because if we just do something and we can't utilize it, we're just wasting money. And so we want to make sure that the administration says we can use this tool to do this. That's worth spending money on. If we can't define that, it's not worth spending money on because we can't use it. And we've done studies in the past that we simply don't use. And you talk to any Ascension Parish citizen, and they're sick and tired of doing studies.
Well, I understand that, but are you telling me that the modeling that we have is inadequate?
We don't even know what to do with that 8 terabytes of data. We have no idea because the deliverables weren't clearly defined, and we have no utilization of that data as we have spent serious money on. So that's what I'm telling you today.
I know, but
we need to do a gap analysis to see where we were and where we need to be. Without that gap analysis, we have no idea what we're getting into.
No, actually, the issue is that we don't have the entire parish H&H modeled, and we have somebody on contract that is able to do that, and that is desperately needed. We have defined the scope of this. The issue is with the parish side of things that we don't know how to use that. We need the technical information, and I'm curious because the people of Prairieville, that's not modeled. The Muddy Creek Basin is not modeled. Parts of Henderson Bayou, I believe, are not modeled. That's the area that is not being serviced right now by this lack of H&H model. I need to be able to explain to the people why you're not going to move forward with mapping this.
Let me explain. Be happy to. So, creating a better structure with deliverables, we can move in and get that done soon, just like that. But that structure, that contract, is not appropriate to do that because it doesn't, and then we don't have the structure and cost analysis to have the planning department and the drainage department for use that in those aspects. We need those deliverables clearly defined and the structure, and we have the possibility to save $300,000 or more in tax dollars. Let me say that again, $300,000 or more in tax dollars if we can review these deliverables and define this in a more appropriate fashion.
Well, Mr. President, we're delaying doing drainage work in the northern part of the parish, which is extremely problematic. So did we find out from finance whether or not we have the money in the budget like was promised last time?
Once we found out the structure was inadequate in deliverables, it didn't do us any good to move any forward because the deliverables weren't there, and it wouldn't benefit to do the project if we don't know how to use it appropriately.
So that would be a no. You didn't do what was promised last time. Is that correct?
The money is not there. We'd have to go find that money.
Okay. This is being done in East Baton Rouge Parish, in Bossier, all over the parish. So we've already looked into this. I'm frankly, I'm quite disappointed. This modeling has been good through the rest of the parish, and now it's not enough for the northern part of the parish, and we're going to delay it. And we've got people that are flash flooding up here because we're not willing to do that plan. And I think that is, it's a real disservice to the northern part of the parish right now that we can't get this done. And this is extremely disappointing.
Let me interject. If you don't mind, let me interject. We're going to work with each district, and we're going to make sure that we don't make the mistakes that we made in District 1 and 2. But I can promise you that we will be coming to the districts, and we're going to be, workshop different things. We on top of it, Aaron. Anything else with the past presidents flood?
Yes,
flood.
I'd like to finish.
Stay on the flash flood.
Well, yes, we talked about the ordinances. We cannot fix ordinances until we have a full mapping of the parish. We don't know what's going to happen elsewhere. This is something that absolutely has to be done, and to continue to delay it is just very disappointing. We need to have this mapped like the rest of the parish. The northern part of the parish does not deserve to be treated this way. Thank you.
Mr. Robert.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a few points that I had some questions on. Number one, I'm going to go from chronologically of how the president brought him through the Scada system. I was on the trip to Jefferson Parish to see this, and one of the most impressive things of this was the rain gauge system, which allowed the parish to get a real feel for how all of these areas and within our parish or our districts receive rain, and we'll learn a lot more of how we do that. I think the aspect of remote starting or even just remote warming up pumps is something that we could look at in the future. I mean, I like the idea of moving a timing system or a time clock system to be able to clock in and clock out at the pump station. I mean, I get that saves time, but it saves even more time. And I'm not just talking about the time of someone paying or overtime. I'm talking about actually getting the pumps working. Maybe we could look into even updating our pumps with some add-ons, like doing some type of solenoid system or network system with solenoids just to get them warmed up. Number two, another part that I liked of the Jefferson Parish field trip was the parks with the levees around them. Now, we can acquire pumps, 6-inch pumps and pumps of reasonable sizes for not a crazy amount of money. And what they did is they took actual facilities that aren't really used for anything other than recreation and green spaces, and they built levees around them, and they put pumps on it to where they could pump flash floods into this holding area. Now, if we had that on that same Scada network to where these things just automatically kicked on, depending on where the water is around the parish, all this is doing, I mean, it's not going to solve the problem, but it's giving us a head start, and it's giving us a time to get things moving. And it would also possibly free us some money in different aspects as far as grants and whatnot through recreation and through parks, bringing together recreation parks, maybe even wildlife and fisheries into some of this. Number four, the 8 terabytes of data. That's a lot of data that we have of studies and whatnot. I mean, that's a huge amount. And I guess if I would like to, address some of what Councilman Lawler was saying, I don't disagree with you saying we need all of the H&H modeling, all of this stuff for the rest of the parish. I agree with that. I don't feel like the president disagrees with you. I don't feel like chairman disagrees with you. But what we're seeing and what we're finding from this H&H modeling is we can get information more tailor-made to what we need in each of these districts now that we're getting the data, now that we're getting these systems. So a question that I would like to have to President Whitmore in just a second in regards to that is what type of timeline will we have to get this to where we have some idea of what scope of work we need? How much more time on this project will that add? And of course, it would also offer the same company to bid out and everyone else. I'd like to know if that could be done in an expedited time. But I'm all about having all of this parish model because we have got to do that. This Scada system, in my opinion, is in no way, shape, or fashion a substitute for that. I feel like it is only supplemental, and we can talk to the engineers that are on contract about it now, HNTB, and see what they say about it. I bet it would help them in gathering some of their data, or vice versa. They may be able to help us networking and figuring out some of this stuff in the field while they're gathering their data. And then lastly, concrete ditches. I think that's a great idea. We just have to be careful. Just like everything else, we got to make sure the ditches at the source are concrete first, because we don't want to just rush all this water onto these other ditches and just wear out these culverts, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, that was 4. I kind of skipped to number 5. Just to finish off, Aaron, I think we're way more on the same page as far as that. As far as me and you, and President Whitmore, can you answer my questions as far as the timeline and what type of hold off this will take?
We need to create the structure. We need to take a look at what the difference is between modeling and floodplain management, if you choose to go that route. And look at the modeling as a separate tool to be utilized by different departments. But we got to do a gap analysis to understand where we are. And we've had conversations, and they say, yes, you have had a lot of done. And our question was, where's our discount for that? Because we've already paid for it. So where's our discount? Because that modeling work's already done, and that needs to be discussed. And they agreed. They said, yes, you do have a lot of work. So this is a conversation that we need to have, but yes, we need to take a look at the structure, and we need to get them to present to us what that cost structure would look like for those needs. And we're working on that now to try to expedite this as soon as possible.
So we're talking 3 months, 6 months, 2 months, 9 days?
No. I mean, you come a couple months.
Yeah.
At most.
You finished, Mr. Robert? You finished?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Ms. Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Clint, did I understand you to say that you're going to be sitting down with HNTB to discuss and review the scope they provided and to deal with what the issues that you think you might have with their contract?
We already have. Terry John has had to sit down with both CSRS and HNTB. And so we've already started those discussions, yes.
Okay, so those are going to continue and to some resolution? Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the Scada presentation. We've been hearing about that for years, and I do love the idea. I do think that is information that would feed into these models and help us as we determine what our master drainage should look like. So I'm very excited that you have initiated that and look forward to working with you to get that done. I mean, I know that CSRS is a part of the HNTB team. They are subbed out often to do modeling work. So I'm hopeful that we can, you will, and that others, if you need assistance in this, can sit down with the HNTB folks, get CSRS in the room, and let's get the scope the way you want it and get this moving forward.
Absolutely. And that Jefferson Parish Scada system was very, very impressive.
Yeah, I wish I had seen that. I'm so sorry that I didn't, but I'm thrilled to hear that we're pursuing that. Look forward to having the money to spend on it.
Yeah.
All right. Appreciate the conversation. Anything else on the flash flooding, Mr. Robert?
One more, I'll make it quick. These ditches that you were talking about, we need to get right away where you can see it across the road, across the street. And I'm not talking specifically ditches that are off-road ditches and whatnot going through people's property. Is there anything that we could do as a council or as administration and council to maybe get some type of protection to say, look, if it's on a road and we're cleaning the ditch on the property next to you and right there and it's just connecting, what's the worst that could happen if we clean that little bit of ditch? Can we get any protection like that by doing a resolution or anything of the such?
I don't believe so. I think you have to have servitude to enter on somebody's property, whether it's in road right of way or additional drainage servitude. I don't think we can clean on somebody's property without permission.
And what's the consequences?
No, I don't do it because I don't want to know what the consequences are.
We don't want. Okay, appreciate that, Parish President. Mr. Wallace.
Yeah, I just want to get a firm timeline on the H&H modeling, and the reason that's important is we also had a presentation from CSRS that indicated that they could use the H&H modeling to look at every new development and determine what the drainage impact would be and the flooding impact would be, which would allow our planning and zoning a better understanding of what this new development is going to do to the areas around it with regards to flooding. So the longer that we delay getting this done, that means we're going to have more and more developments that will be brought to us that we'll have to approve without having adequate information. So when are we going to have the H&H modeling contracted out? Because every week is another delay.
Yeah, as when I talked to you about H&H modeling in John's office, Aaron, this is one of the things that I told you I was super excited about and wanted to see done. We have been discussing this, so this is something that I'm not delaying and I'm trying to get done as fast as possible. This is a great tool. It's a future tool. And I would say, you know, I don't want to put a deadline and tell you next month and all of a sudden next month comes and you chastise me. A couple months is an adequate amount of time to get this clear and straight and get this presented to y'all. And I'm confident we're in the middle is a major sewer negotiation here. There's a lot going on. This is a lot to handle, but we're doing our best.
I understand, but we discussed that probably 5 months ago. And we've had a contract out saying that this could have been done by then. It's just very, very disappointing that this is taking that long. We could put out a contract tomorrow to get the H&H modeling done at the standard we need, at the standard that CSRS can use to evaluate new subdivisions. And we hear it all the time from the public that these new subdivisions are causing drainage problems and we're doing nothing about it. Here I am trying to do something about it and we're not moving.
Do you have any idea what that
I hope
costs?
2 months from now we have it done.
We need to know what that costs and that cost structure so that the developer can pay that cost and to get his project done. So we need that cost structure. We need those deliverables, those time frames and turnarounds, because planning commission is relying on time. So we need to know how quickly that can be done in that aspect, and that all needs to be in the deliverables.
But that's two separate contracts, Mr. President.
We appreciate the report, Parish President. Mr. Lawler, we appreciate your concerns, and we definitely will be moving on this. We need to move into drainage report. Mr. Ron.
Good evening, Chair, Council. I have several jobs in the department have done in the last month. I want to give a shout out to them with kudos fighting this COVID crisis we're all dealing with. I wanted to make it known that we've just in public works, we've had 78 scenarios of quarantine, not positive cases, but linking to scenarios. So that's been a major damper on production in areas. But I got to say, we're still pushing on and driving. So in the last month, I want to kind of go over some of the projects they did, and I'm just going to briefly go through that. Is Hope Villa subdivision in Prairieville. Some outfall ditch work there is complete. Perkins Oaks Drive, outfall work complete. St. Andrews Court, outfall ditch completed. Country Drive and Country Ridge subdivision is completed. We'll get into this later item. Charlotte Avenue, some drainage work done. Irene Bro Road, some outfall work. Demi Millie Road, outfall. Cypress Gold, outfall. Day Lane, Highway 30, we're on Hodgson Road right now doing some drainage work to Clue Ditch. Airline and Highway 30 on the State Bourne area. That's a major congested area that was opened up. Johnny May Road outfall to Francois, Lakewood, Church Point, Denham Road, outfall to Bayou North Cease, Greenfield Crossing, some outfall work, Rio Bourgeois, George Rie, and Carpenter's Chapel. So that was all done within the last month and a half of work on these drainage crews. So they're still turning work orders and responding to hurricanes and pumping events. So sandbagging and everything else in the equation on top of all of the challenges we had, we're still doing what we can for the residents all the way around. Other than that, I don't want to go too much further. We got a lot of outside people here to represent some of these other items. So if you don't mind, we'll just go into that unless you guys have any questions.
We'll start out from district. Chase, do you have anything for Mr. Ron?
No, man, just a big old thank you like always. DPW doesn't get enough credit, and some of the hardest working cats we got.
Mr. Turner?
Yes, just a couple of quick questions. You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. I know, Ron, we visited those residents on Highway 73 after that flash flood in July. Have we made any progress to find out what was the problem with that?
Yes, sir. We've been in contact with the developers and energy and the engineer of that area. And so with that, they brought us a solution, and we're hopeful that in the next month or so, there'll be some work going on out there to hopefully remedy some of that and try to do some corrective action out there, reroute some water and get it flowing and help with those flash flooding events.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Rollback?
No, thank you.
Mr. Ogeron?
Ron, you're doing a great job. Keep it up.
Mr. Mason?
I mean, what can you say? Ron's crew is awesome. Plus, I found out that a few of them went to, I believe, Sulphur to serve jambalaya after the hurricane. So that's a big hats off to you guys for that. That's above and beyond. And I think y'all make Ascension Parish look good every day.
Not done with that.
Mr. Dow?
Yeah, I don't have anything to add except I know those guys worked hard to get that jambalaya out and get to Lake Charles, and they spent a lot of time on the road. So, and they're also doing a great job keeping up with projects. Anything we ask, I can tell you anything I ask Ron about, he's willing to go look at with me, go discuss with our citizens. So, thanks for all the good work. Appreciate it.
Mr. John?
I echo what all have said before. Ron and do an excellent job, even getting prepared for the storm. They did a lot of extra work, but they're going along with maintaining what we need to do to continue to make drainage improvements parish-wide. So thank you, Ron, and the DPW folks and the administration.
Mr. Aaron, did you have anything for the drainage report?
Just that, Ron, you're doing one incredible job. I've gotten so many people contacting me about your crews that you do a good job, but the ones that have been able to talk to them said they've been very polite and very understanding. So that's wonderful. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Anything else on the drainage report before we move into general business? Anything else? If not, we'll move on to general business. A is the approval of selection committee. Ms. LeBlanc.
You forgot me, Jesse.
Sorry, but go ahead, Mr. Aaron.
That's okay. I do want to applaud Ron, his team. Of course, I'm sure that leadership is coming from the top. I'm impressed with the fact that we are doing our activation in preparation for storms very, very thoroughly. Even when it doesn't look like it, once it looks like it might not come our way, they are continuing to exercise caution and do everything they need to do. And I thought about this on the last event. I know it's frustrating to go do all that work and then it doesn't come our way, but thank God it doesn't. And practice makes perfect. So the more we mobilize and utilize and get everybody in action, the better we will be at doing it. I know you'll see your time frame to get prepared come down. And that way, if we ever get a quick turn of a storm, we know we can exercise the protocols that we need to do quickly. So I thank you for that, and I really appreciate all of your folks and the leadership team. Thank you so much.
Chairman, if you don't mind, real quick, I just want to say that, I hear my name up there a lot. I look, the workers all the compliments. I appreciate the name, but that goes to Public Works, and I'm honored to be right by it. So thank you for the compliments.
Okay, appreciate that. Mike, you have anything?
I believe Miss Cynthia from purchasing is going to take the mic.
Okay. I'm sorry I missed you there, Terry, but I now understand what this virtual stuff is. It's different.
I don't mind raising my hand. Thank you. Now you just got to remind me to lower my hand.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dempsey,
Okay,
very much.
Thank you. So we'll move on to the selection committee. Is that Ms. LeBlanc?
Yes, sir. On June the 11th, the purchase.
I apologize. Repeat that, please.
On June the 11th, the purchasing department received 12 proposals for the Ascension Parish Conway Bayou Pump Station upgrade. If y'all have a listing, the 12 vendors are listed on the next page. After careful review, the non-engineering selection committee recommends accepting the proposal submitted by Infinity Engineering Consultants, LLC, and to authorize the parish president to begin contract negotiations for this service.
So moved. Moved by Mr. Aaron. Second by Mr. Johnny. Any discussion? Any opposition? Discussion, Mr. Wagensback.
I just had a quick question. I don't necessarily need to know the whole process. I was just, how do we choose a company? Is it low bid? I'm just curious how we pick that company.
We use a scorecard.
We have an engineering selection committee scorecard that's been previously developed. Has a different criteria, and we go through and evaluate each proposal based on that card, and then we come up to tally the numbers, and then we all, the committee members meet, and we tally up the scores and make a recommendation. In this situation, it was actually an engineering selection committee versus a professional services selection committee. This is engineering and design services, and for this actual project, it is FEMA funded, so typically you're supposed to choose the highest score on the proposal packages. It is not a bid. This is a professional services or an engineering services type award. So in this case, we are selecting the highest bid, so FEMA should be okay with that for future funding.
Okay, appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Sir.
Appreciate the question. So we have a motion and a second. No opposition, motion passed. We'll go on to the discussion of possibility CEA between DOTD and East Ascension Drainage, and our Vice Chairman, Mr. Chase Malonzo. Appreciate you taking over.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. On July 24th, we were able to set up a Zoom call with our leaders for the DOTD. For months, I've been trying to get this connection. We've had these big, long, very constructive talks about flash flooding and what some things that we can do to help. My belief is a large part of it is that whenever we get these 2 or 3 inch rains that happen within an hour or two, the biggest issue is not so much the pumps, because we'll see homes in danger of flash flooding, and you can pull up or elevations at Morven Bro and Henderson Bayou and all this, and the water hasn't made it there yet. The water is sitting in our yards, and we need a way to get it to our canals or bayous or rivers to where we can get it to our pumping stations and get it out to Parish. So for months, I've been trying to get a connection with DOTD to see if they would entertain any kind of CEA and partnership in Ascension Parish being able to address these large drainage arteries that are state highway roadside ditches, go underneath the state highways, things that we just don't have the authority to address as needed. And big kudos to Davin Duplessis. Made a call for a call and got us together. Just one of the best meetings I've been a part of. It was long, it was constructive. And so Davin Duplessis set up a meeting, and from DOTD we had Mr. Aaron Ellisar, Mr. Josh Stutz, and Mr. Todd Donmeyer. And we had Mr. Dempsey, and we had administration on there. It was very productive a call, and it was very educating. For instance, so DOTD has roughly 1 crew for a tri-parish area. They are 100% complaint and work order based. They just, unfortunately, DOTD doesn't have the resources to put Ascension Parish on a ditch maintain and ditch cleaning schedule. Basically, whenever somebody calls enough times or has such a major concern, they will take this they'll take this 1 crew, I believe it's 5 to 7 people, and they'll migrate it all around Ascension, St. James, and I believe East Iberville, and just do what they can. And so my presentation to them was to see if they would be on board with Ascension Parish addressing these ditches along the state highways. And unfortunately, they don't have anything in their budget. Much like we just did the grass cutting CEA with them. Unfortunately, they don't have any money to give us. They can't help us out for every linear foot of ditch that we dig and clean and maintain. But they are over the moon happy to work with us and the CEA to, if we look over the last 2 years, I think we spent roughly $7 million on our parish side roadside ditches. You can ride all around our parish roads. These ditches are looking the best they've looked in many, many years. Unfortunately, we get 2 inches of rain, our new clean ditches are filling up, and once they hit state highway ditches, boom, it's a deadhead. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to get to New River, Black Bayou, Man Shack, all of these areas. And they are very happy and entertained discussing. We can iron out the details, whatever we think that we need and they need for whenever we put in our work orders, this world-class work order system we have, whenever we put in a work order, if it's 300 feet on a state highway ditch, if it's 1 mile of a state highway ditch, instead of putting these individual permits that take weeks to get approved and communicated, the CEA, whenever we get a work order and it's on a state highway, Ron and Darren, Ron Davin and those guys, they mobilize AP equipment and we go knock it out. Whatever's in the best interest for Ascension Parish drainage, we knock it out. It will be on our dime. And they don't have the money to help out. I was hoping there'd be some money there, but there's not. So that is basically the pitch to everybody tonight. We also discussed culverts. We just passed in on May or June that we are outlawing metal culverts. In the CEA, there's a discussion. Hey, is it possible that the parish can sign off on whatever roadside culverts that the state is allowing, to where we can also, kind of catch and maintain these metal culverts that we know cost us. And if you look at tonight's agenda, There's another issue, right, with a metal culvert that's 10, 15 years old. Long story short, I know I'm rambling on. DOTD is ecstatic to work with us, whatever we need to make Ascension Parish better, keep the water out of our homes. And this is our pitch to y'all, and I'm open to feedback and everything to where we can bring back to them some concerns or other things that maybe we would want to approach on our dime if they would allow us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Melanson. Anything that you want to add, Mr. Robert?
Chase, I want to give you props for starting this with DOTD. It's something that I think we've all discussed a little bit, and it's a great idea. I think you're putting out a lot of groundwork here that, right now there's not money in it, but you have DOTD and these state departments working with us, and you get them excited about it, and we're excited about it. Money can easily show up whenever Garrett Graves or different people representing us in Washington see this. They'll be happy to give us a little more money, I'm hoping. But great job on that, and any help you need with this in the future, let me know.
I think next was Ms. Terry.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm eager to hear from Cody Martin on how we are able to spend Ascension Parish taxpayers' dollars on state highways.
Cody, you there? We'll have to get that answer for you later, Ms. Terry, or
Yeah,
Mr.
that's
Quimble.
fine. It's not.
President.
It was discussed in the meetings that we would do a CEA, a cooperative endeavor agreement, and that would allow us to legally go in and do that. So that was discussed. Obviously, we'll need to pass legals review, but that was the discussion we had with DOTD.
Okay, thank you.
We'll go to Mr. Mason and then Mr. Lawler. Mr. Mason.
This is for either Chase or Ron, one of you guys. Chase, you may have discussed this, and I apologize if I missed it, but Ron, is this something that the DPW crew is kind of ready to handle? Because I know that we have a few state roads, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of ditches that we would have to take care of. Is that something that we are prepared to kind of handle? And I apologize again, Chase, if you already covered this.
No, I'd be glad to comment, Councilman Mason. It definitely is something that we would need to look at the budget. We are looking long-term on how much we have spent with it would be the contractors that we have on board, most likely would be the ones that would do this work if we opted to do it. But we also, like Chase said, we're $7 million in on what we've done thus far. Now, of that $7 million on the roadside maintenance, about $5 million of that was in 2019. So we have looked at pacing this thing and the amount of money we are obligating to roadside ditch maintenance in the future. So I would caution that before we commit to anything, that we just explore all avenues, because we have a financial budget to protect too on our end. So do we have the capabilities? Absolutely. But how much and how fast do we want to obligate funds over the next year, 2, 4, 5 years out? We really need to look at that. And just one comment before I yield to the president. DOTD is here to answer any questions if you guys would like, but I see President Whitmore here wanted to comment.
I just want to say real quick before President gets back on, I am in complete support of this. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I absolutely give Chase a pat on the back for taking the lead on this, and I think it's a great idea, and I do hope we can work out a way to make this happen, because I've had a couple of conversations with Councilman Walton about that. We both agree that it is something that needs to happen. So kudos, Chase, and I hope we can figure this out. And I'll be like Joel said, I'll be glad to help whatever I can.
Mr. Aaron Lawler.
That wasn't me. That was somebody decent. No, I mean, I think there's some potential here. There are a couple of issues that I see. Similar to what we had with roads. We have a lot of state highways that we get calls on to fix all the time, but we don't have the funds in our roads budget to go fix state roads. We don't have I mean, it's my understanding that we're not caught up with our parish ditches. Would that be correct, Ron?
I would say that we have made strides in movement towards where we were 3 years ago, absolutely. but I don't think you'll ever
Give it a
knock
try.
There is a demand recently with these flash flooding events. We have seen more calls coming in for roadside ditches. We had. So we're averaging about 200 work orders right now on the books for ditch cleaning on the roads in the parish. So there is a constant demand across the parish, but I will say we get the calls for the state highways too.
Yeah, we get calls for both. My concern is we've got a lot of parish ditches and parish drainage issues that need to be taken care of before we start taking care of something that the state should be handling. Now, I know they don't have the money, but that's their job to handle that. And this could set up a bad precedent. But we should start doing, we're going to start doing state highways. So we're going to start fixing their roads. I know that there was a big opposition to when we were going to take over some state highways. So we had a lot of people that came and spoke at meetings that were very vocal that this is a state responsibility, that we should be taking it over because we can't even take care of our own highways. And this is going to be the same thing. I don't think it's a good idea to start taking over state obligations when we can't meet our own obligations. The other part, how do we, to beat a dead horse, quite frankly, how do we know which state highway ditches to clean unless we have H&H modeling and to tell us which ones will get the best bang for the buck? That's all I have.
Okay, just hold on. Parish President, you want to go ahead and interject here?
Yes, so this is not cleaning all state highways. Want to be clear. Oftentimes we get a call to clean out a ditch in front of someone's house, and the response is it's a state highway. We don't have that access. This CEA would allow us to clean that on that work order instead of telling them that we can't. Oftentimes we're cleaning a parish ditch that intersects a state highway, and we must stop. We'd like to continue out to the outfall, helping that residents on corners and curves and situations like that. So it's not a situation where we're talking about taking the full responsibility, but allowing us to do small work orders and working from parish ditches into state ditches to the nearest outfall. Thanks.
Mr. Wagensback, and then Mr. Corey.
So my question was similar. I mean, how do we identify the ditches that need it the most? I mean, I do feel like as we ride around, it's great that we're cleaning out ditches, but are we actually improving drainage and prioritizing those ditches which give us the most flow and the most protection against flash flooding? I mean, I think that's a valid question. How do we determine which ones do the best? So not necessarily related to Chase doing this. I think this is a good idea, but I do think that's a good question. How do we decide which ones give us the best, efficiency with our flooding system? It's just a question.
Mr. Corey.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chase, for putting this effort into it. I agree with you 100%. Just because it's called a state highway instead of a parish highway, it affects our neighbors. And we were called to do whatever we can to help our neighbors when it comes to flooding. I hate the idea of there being boundaries where we can or cannot do the work that we do. Ron and his team do a fantastic job, and I think for certain that we can move forward with these. I would be remiss, and I think you guys are all going to have a smirk on your face when I say it, but if we get out of sewer and we save the $4 million a year or so that we're spending currently on sewer, we may have the assets that we need to take on some of these extra projects. And I'm really thrilled to know that that we can see that we can see that over the horizon. And I'm looking forward to moving forward with this extra money that we may have in the parish real soon. Thank you, everybody. God bless.
Mr. Chase.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to clear up. I am not asking us to take over ditch digging all down 431 or 444. But if we are cleaning a parish road, say we got two parallel parish roads, and there is, I'm sorry, I know that's loud. I'm outside. If there's two parish roads, if there's a parish road in a major drainage artery, and if there's 500 feet of state highway between there, or guys and gals are there, or equipment is there, we now have the authority to just say, hey, let's knock out this 500 feet. I am not advertising for us to go start digging 30 and 40 miles of state highway. But instead of our crew stopping, bringing all this equipment back to DPW, we submit a permit, we wait a week or two, we get the authority. I think the most efficient way is the CEA and the DOTD is being more than polite with allowing us, hey, you need to dig this ditch to make Ascension Parish drain better, to stop the 30-year-old home at the end, to make them better. Go ahead and knock out that 500 feet along Highway 44. And that's the intention. I'm not trying to start cleaning all state highways. I just wanted to clarify. Thank y'all.
Sure. And we'll go to Mr. Johnny and then Aaron finish up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chase, kudos for all the hard work you're putting into this. I know DOTD folks are going to be cooperative as much as they can. And we do have a number of miles in this parish that are state highways. I agree with your concept. The CEA is a good idea. I side a little bit with what Aaron said. You got to watch out how precedents might be, served here, because once if the constituents, if the public finds out that this is happening, everyone that lives on the state highway, when they have a little bit of a problem, we're going to get a phone call. And I'm just saying, let's be cautious going forward. Thank you.
Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, I'm not completely against this, and Mr. Ogeron, Councilman Ogeron brought up a good point about possibly having funding for this in the future. One of the things, Jason, would probably be included in the CEA is to look at like a cost cap. Like we'll put, $50,000, $100,000 towards this, and as long as we monitor how much we're spending on it, we cap ourselves so we don't get into a situation where we're just spending so much money on state projects. But hopefully in the future we'll have $3 or $4 million more a year and we can do all this stuff.
Sure, appreciate it. I think we have Ms. Terry and then Mr. Joe.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I'm not opposed either. I think, and I very much appreciate the clarification that we're not talking about just widespread use of this initially. I think that helps me to better grasp the explanation that we would just try to get around a corner to an outfall ditch. I think that all makes perfect sense. I'm comfortable with that, and certainly appreciate Chase and getting with the DOTD and seeing if we can work something out where we do an appropriate CEA. So I'm not absolutely opposed. I do want to caution that we have to be careful with the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Joe.
I think through the discussion, we've already identified two ways in which we can set precedents over these projects. And I feel like one of those ways would be any state right-of-way or state highway that blocks the outfall of parish drainage, which could mean a culvert truck going to be deployed there. The other scenario would be where you already have parish equipment out, like Chase has said. You already have your people out there, you have the equipment out there, and you're talking about a small patch of road. I mean, you're saving thousands of dollars just having them there already and having the equipment there. So I think a little bit more discussion about this, we can kind of come up with some more parameters. And I feel like that DOTD will probably or possibly decide to maybe chip in a little bit if we start this going the right way.
Go ahead, Mr. Chase.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, it's so hard to see. There might be Mr. Aaron Ellisor sitting in the conference room. I do just want to thank him again for meeting with us and everything else. It was an hour Zoom meeting that we had 6-7 weeks ago. So thank you, Mr. Aaron, and all y'all and the cooperation. And we look forward to speaking with y'all soon.
Great. Did Aaron have anything from the conference room?
Josh Hughes is here as well from our district. He's one of our assistant district administrators. He was also involved with that Zoom call.
I can just kind of add to all that's been said thus far. I'd like to echo Mr. Melancon's comment of being over the moon happy. We definitely are and willing to to put something together. I mean, I see it being a potentially wonderful tool to be a collaborative effort, basically to have extra boots on the ground. And you guys are getting calls just as we are for hotspot drainage issues as they come up, not just for flash floods, but just ongoing, drainage issues. In order to provide a continuous positive drainage to the outfall, I mean, it's a system of parish roads, state roads, ultimately to get to the outfall. We see this being best handled as a cooperative endeavor agreement. Like y'all mentioned already, very similar to a maintenance agreement for the mowing agreement you guys already have. Going forward, as we put this together, I've already been in contact with our attorneys. I don't see it being very difficult to put together. I see it best having an exhibit in the back, basically to have all the routes outlined, basically with limits, state routes identified similar to the mowing contract. Outside of that, I think it'd be pretty straightforward. The draft is still being developed right now. I don't have an estimated time, but our attorneys got back with us saying that it's something very, very doable. So as soon as I have that, I'd like to turn it right back to you guys for comments, and we'll see where we end up.
I really appreciate that. The sooner the better. Parish President, you had anything on this CEA?
No, just a great job by Chase leading the effort there. This is a continuous problem with our work order system. So yeah, glad to see us coming up with a solution here.
All right. Ms. Terry?
Yes, thank you so much, Chair, for recognizing me again. I just wanted to ask, is it possible that the state, Ms. Delasar, that you all would consider giving some priority to Ascension Parish's work with that crew when we are contributing significantly to the effort with our equipment and personnel? I'm not asking you to commit tonight, but I'm asking you to think about that. Just think about it.
Yeah, I understand. I think if you look at the vast majority of the complaints we receive, Ascension is the most populated region that unit serves. And so, probably 85% of those complaints do come from Ascension, and we just have to go look at each one and prioritize it as best we can. However, we can't forget about our neighbors in St. James and East Iberville, and those guys, they sometimes get jealous and see a lot of the work going on in Ascension because that's where the need's at, and they do want us. So we just have to spread our crews out as best we can and just take each day at a time. So.
I certainly understand.
Ms. Darren?
Yes.
Lola?
Yeah. Yes, Ron, real quick. If we decide to go forward with this, can y'all come back to the next meeting and find out and let us know if we have, say, $100,000 in the budget for the rest of the year that could go towards this? Just anticipating, I think there's a lot of support for it, but we know we need to have the financial side taken care of. Is that something that y'all could do if you know?
Yeah, that's not a problem, Aaron. I do feel like we would need to start looking at some of the things that are on the books as far as work orders and what that might consist of, as far as, in the field conditions. It might not just be ditch cleaning, it might be culverts or driveways that might be a problem as well. So we really need to look at that CEA where we fully get the scope of what needs to be done to get the benefit, and then, put some dollars to it. So we can definitely put a figure on it and bring it back to you. That's not a problem. We'll definitely consider that.
Okay. I know that'll be an essential part before we can move forward. Maybe we can do that in conjunction with working on the CEA to make sure we have the money there at the same time. So thank you. That's it.
Sure. Well, summing it up, and really appreciate everyone working on this and, seeing the need that, hey, look, the parish ditches flow into state and state flows into the parish. So very good job. Anything else on the agreement for anyone? Not, we're going to move on. we approval to purchase and install box culverts at 41373 Cemetery Road in conjunction with the Wallace Acres Drainage Improvement Project. This is one motion by Mr. Johnny, second by Mr. Mason. Discussion. Any opposition? None. Motion passed. We'll move on to approval and supplying and installation of box culvert at 43422 and 43444 Norwood Road in replacement with the rail car bridge and drainage improvement.
Motion.
Moved by Mr. Wagensback, second by Mr. Johnny. Any discussion? Any opposition? None. Motion passed. Move on to approval to remove a rail bridge and replace the box culvert on Merritt Evans Road. This is the Marty Burat property in conjunction with the Burat Drainage Improvement Project.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Terry, second by Mr. Corey. Discussion? Opposition? Mr. Robey, you got opposition or discussion?
No opposition, I just had discussion.
Okay. Thank
This particular property that the work is being done on, is there, can you kind of give me the total amount that we're looking at here? Or is there some type of budget for it? Any idea?
Sure. Ron has some pictures, and also the drainage improvement that is going on at this location will take care of some stuff that we were, having flooding back on Abbey James Road, Shirleyville Road. So Ron, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yes, this is part of a drainage improvement project at Henderson Bayou Watershed. We have some permits to clean out branches of the Henderson Bayou. This is the Burat ditch, and it winds up draining all of the Merritt Evans Road. Like you said, it comes back under Highway 44 by the DeLong's Do It Center in Galvez. It drains all the Abbey James Road, and it catches Parker Place, Reese Lane, Brookstone, the branch of Parker Road, and then on into Fountain Blue and the tail end of Rhonda Place.
I'm ready to move forward. Thank you.
Sure. Any other discussion? Any opposition? If none, motion passed. All right, we're going to move on to the, we had to speak on this early, the Charlotte Avenue culverts. Is that, Ms. Terry, is that your district?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Whenever my constituent placed his 15-foot, I believe, culverts into the ditch, he was permitted for that by the parish. He then used his own resources to purchase those culverts and to put in the drainage catch basins and make his yard absolutely beautiful. And then over the next few years, the parish permitted some other development that, from what he says, and I think this is likely true, began to cause a backup at his culverts. And now, having reviewed that, the parish president and Ron have worked with him out on the site. Having observed that, they can see, as you saw in his photographs, that his 15-inch culverts are just no longer appropriately sized, and they need to be, in by our engineering estimation, the 24s. So I believe that having permitted all of his work, we need to make him whole. We need to put these back in the right size, and we need to be cautious going forward, that we understand what allowing culverts to be put in and taking the responsibility for sizing those does down the road when other drainage matters change in the area and those culverts are no longer sufficient. So I would just appreciate your support for my constituent to make him whole, to put this back the way it should be.
Mr. Robert?
This is something that we've discussed several times as a drainage board, and I agree with what Councilman Casso is saying now. I mean, we went out there and inspected these culverts and told them, that's right, cover them up, move forward. Now, I understand there's circumstances that made these culverts no longer efficient, like you're saying, or adequate. So that's it's one of those things where who's to know who's at fault, but I feel like it's our responsibility to fix the problem because it's stopping drainage anyway. And we approved those culverts beforehand. I think it's a specific case where it was approved. It's not a mistake on their part. It's not like they didn't follow restrictions. It's not like we didn't inspect it. That's number one. And then number two, kind of a little outside the box thinking, to relate this to those detention ponds or detention levee systems they did in parks in different areas. This is a problem all over the parish, where before you have areas that would drain fine until you started putting a lot more water on it, and the smaller culverts in certain sections flood and back up water. Is this done in sections to where we could possibly look at pumping out or relieving some of this ditch area to not have to go through and destroy all the driveways and change all the culverts or anything of that sort?
I direct that back to Ron. I know you've been on this. Go ahead.
Well, if you don't mind, Mr. John, to kind of give the council or commission view out in the field, we can show those photos. And as you know, the vote last month was do everything we can now. Before we make this vote, we did a lot of work over there since our last meeting. So just a generalized location, the Prairieville Fire Department is kind of your landmark. But if you look at those red arrows near the fire department, that's where that water ultimately winds up, in the Bayou Grand Goudin. So since the last meeting, the drainage department's going out. We dug the outfall from the Goudin back to Charlotte. We upsized the cross pipe under Charlotte, and we also dug out the road ditches, and we blew out the line of pipes in question. So if you look at the Charlotte Avenue, you see the two addresses. That's the location where the pipes are in question. Next slide, John. So here is before we did any ditch maintenance on the outfall going to Prairieville Fire Department. You notice the concrete pipe there. It's not very big, and that was one of the things we noticed was enlarge that and do the ditch clean out all the way to the Goudin, like I just told you. And Mr. Blanchard mentioned earlier, I did go out of the day Laura was actually hitting, the rains he was referring to is what we got from Laura. And it was not a substantial rain, I will say that. But I did get the actual drainage function of the improvement there. So go to the next slide, John. You notice the culvert is much larger. And the volume of the water, the ditch has a nice 2 to 3 feet bottom ditch in it now. And that water was blowing straight to the Goudin and really flowing out at a very good rate. The next slide, John, you'll see is this is actually standing at Mr. Blanchard's pipes in question, looking downstream back towards the pipe that we just enlarged. So we did skim these ditches out. You notice the bottom of the ditch water level at that driveway down there. The ditches are dug to the inverts of the pipes, and everything is flowing. The next slide, please. And you notice this is the deal. You see this is the culverts that are in question. They're smaller than that driveway downstream. That driveway is a 24-inch pipe. So you can see the pipes were open and flowing that day. We did vacuum and pump the truck, blow out these pipes. The next slide, John. And the result of this work, if you look really close at the pipe at the bottom of the screen, you can see the water line and how high those pipes were holding water before we did the drainage improvement along the side of the road. So in reality, it probably wasn't functioning, but it may be a 12-inch culvert or even smaller, because that quarter of the depth of that pipe is full of water all the time. So now that we increased the capacity of cross drain and dug the road ditches out and the outfall, the pipe function is much better. Now, the red arrows kind of give you the visual of what we're dealing with here. So what is being proposed is 3 options to you guys. We have the Drainage Department and Administration's recommendation, and then there are 2 other options, and we'll see what you guys want to do here. The first option would be going back with plastic pipes and T catch basins. So instead of replacing these catch basins with concrete poured in place boxes, which is rather expensive, we feel like a function that can be applied here is buy the catch basins already fabricated in the product of the plastic pipe. And also eliminate them. They don't really need all of those catch basins out there. I think there's 4 or 5 concrete ones on site. So option 1 that you guys will be looking at would be going back with replacing all of the pipe and putting in, I believe it's 3 T cleanouts and replacing the driveways. And that cost is roughly $30,900 to do that complete line of pipe and the driveways. Now, option number 2 is what the administration is recommending. And that would be dig up all of the pipes and the catch basins, put the open ditch back in the yards, replace the driveway pipe and the driveways back. But you fix the drainage problem in doing that. So the drainage problem at hand would be resolved by option 2. And that cost would be around $20,400. So it'd be a cost savings of $10,900 to go that route. Option 3 is to replace like in kind, pretty much just like you see it out there, and pour in place concrete boxes at those cleanouts. That cost could be up to roughly $50,800. Depending on the concrete box work, how that would come back, because we would have to outsource that. So we can't really put a true dollar figure on that, but that price would be the most expensive, which is option 3. So I think that's all the slides I had, John. We can go out of the other ones, but that just kind of shows you the amount of catch basins. It is, what, 4 or 5 catch basins that would be out there if we did the like and kind option. So keep going.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead. Mr. Wagensback had his hand up first, and then we'll go to the parish president.
Yeah, so I think this is a similar discussion to bridges and culverts, right? So do you feel like there are other occurrences in the parish like this? And are we setting a precedent where we're going to have to, anything we missized 10 to 15, I mean, I'm not sure how long ago he put these in. And I'm certainly not saying that he doesn't have a strong case here, considering we told him to put those in. But since you've done the extra work in all the downstream, is there still a need to do this? And how do we tell that? So how do we determine that? Now, again, I'm not lobbying that we don't do this or do it, but I think we need to be careful with a precedent we set for future. I mean, you know, are we going to spend $2 million every year fixing problems like this? Or can we look at the drainage plan as a whole, and are there downstream things we can do to help these situations?
Thank you, Mr. Wagensback. Mr. President.
Yeah, I think Councilman Wagensback is spot on. This does set precedent. That's why it was put off last month. So are we saying that everything we permit, regardless of error or whatever, that now we're responsible for, because we're talking in the millions? So I was hoping legal would be on to talk a little bit about precedents and not really.
Yeah, and Look, and I am on the call. Sorry, guys. I had to jump off for a minute when y'all moved the meeting. I was double booked tonight, but I'm back on now, so I'm sorry if I missed anything. But just to kind of go what Parish President is saying, look, from the legal aspect of it, the most important thing is you guys got to be prepared to be consistent in your decisions across the board. You want to stay away from that arbitrary and capricious standard where you're making a different decision in every circumstance. So all I would tell you guys is try to make a decision that you can be consistent with across the board, and also just give some justification to your decision so that, if it's ever challenged, that we can use basically your legislative discretion and you have reasonings behind why you made the decision that you made. So, just want to kind of echo the comments that are being made. Look, the only legal obligation, I say the only legal obligation, but the obligation that the drainage district has is for positive drainage. And there's a lot of case law there, and there's a lot of AG's opinion that says if a culvert is put down, it doesn't have to be replaced by a culvert. Your only obligation is to restore positive drainage. So just wanted to kind of chime in there, and if y'all have any other questions, let me know.
I know we had a lot of hands up. Mr. Chase and then Mr. Robert.
Thank you, Chair. At this point where I stand, this gentleman, and I realize this is our first time that we're making this decision with our new policy. He did everything that we asked of him. He went get his permits. He got it inspected. He did everything we did. We permitted the new commercial development that's behind him. He didn't put his burden on himself. At this time, Chair, and I definitely want to hear everybody else's conversation. At this time, I want to make a motion for option 1 to reinstall the culverts with the T basins. He gets his enclosed ditch back that he already paid for once, that we told him was perfectly fine. But at the same time, his T basins instead of the concrete. To me, that's a good middle ground for everybody. And you know what Cody just said, my decision and my precedence is based on he did everything in Ascension Parish acts. He did everything right. He did everything that we asked. So I think we should meet him in the middle road. So at this time, Chair, I will make a motion for option number 1, the $30,900 repair for his property.
I second.
Okay, we'll hold to that, Mr. Malonzo, Mr. Robert, and then Mr. Johnny.
I think we need to look at the cost of what y'all are saying that this is going to cost the parish overall, because it's not going to be $2 million a year, because from the numbers I'm looking at here, it's about 1/3 or 2/3 of the cost to do open ditches. So you're only talking about $10,000 out of $30,000. I think that's one major point. The second major point is that we inspected, approved, and I say approved because we told them which pipe to put. And I say inspected because that means they did it right. They did it to the specs that we wanted them to do them to. In that situation, I mean, I feel like it's our job to fix the drainage of the parish and eat that little, I mean, I know it's little, I say little, I mean, it's a lot of money, but $10,000 here. And next time it might be 15,000, it might be 5,000, but that little bit is improving everything. It's improving the ditches not being cut. It's improving the whole scenario. And I think we owe that to them. So I said, if they didn't already have a second, I second Chase's motion to do the second option with the team.
No problem. Mr. Johnny.
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Malonzo. As Terry stated, and as Mr. Blanchard stated, he did this according to what we asked him to do, and he paid for this. He didn't. This was not materials or labor supplied by the parish. He did that out of his own pocket, and he did everything we asked him to do. And down the road, I don't know how much time has lapsed, but it has created a problem. And I think that we're expected. I think we should be expected to make it right. And so I go along with what Chase said, and I think we need to make him whole as Terry requested. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Aaron?
Yes, we explored whether or not he's willing to enter into some sort of cost sharing.
was here earlier. He was here earlier, Aaron, and he certainly does not want to go that route. I mean, he's pretty vocal about wanting us to replace it all, and that's what he's requesting. And I want to make a point, this is not just him, there's another lot that we will be dealing with here too. So it's about 400 feet total.
Ms. Terry?
Yes, so Dempsey, thank you for recognizing me. Ron, tell me about the quality of what we are proposing in number 1 compared to the quality of what he has there now.
I think the product is billet gasket joints, the plastic pipe, so it really holds up well. A lot of times we see where your mortar pipes into a concrete catch basin. A lot of times we see sinkholes around that. But cosmetically, the concrete, a lot of people like them better. But the functionality of the plastic pipe is basically the same. We would look at reducing them, so that's why you see a cheaper prices. There are fewer of them because they actually have more concrete boxes out there than what we really require. So we're looking at eliminating some of them, also eliminating the cost. So that's why you see a significant price difference there. But I don't see too much a difference, and they both serve the same purpose.
The longevity of those is good as well. I mean, when you hit that with the lawnmower, what happens? When you hit concrete with it, you tear up your lawnmower. When you hit the plastic, do we tear up the lawnmower or break the plastic?
No, when you install these, they are actually flush with the ground. If you do the grading right and you compact all the field around it, so you'd be able to mow right over the top of it, and it shouldn't really affect. You should be able to drive right over it if it's done properly.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your first and second.
Okay. I think we have one more discussion, Mr. Mason.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I do agree that this man did follow the rules and he did what we asked him to. I just have to kind of side on the air of caution with Councilman Wagasback that we are going to be setting a precedent, and no matter what verbiage we use, I'm just worried that if we go in and replace this outdated system by somebody who followed the rules. I'm not saying he didn't follow the rules. I had a very long conversation with Mr. Blanchard, and I empathize with this situation. My only concern is that we are going to be setting a precedent for anybody else who's done this, and I just don't know how much. I mean, we can guesstimate, but I don't know how much this is going to cost us in the long run. So, I mean, I will support it, but I just wanted it, on record that I am a little nervous about it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Aaron.
Yes, the cost for open ditch again, what is that?
That is $20,400, and that's we recommend that as the option. But
I mean, part of me would like to set a precedent that we're going to go with the lowest functional cost if we're going to do this, because I'm looking all over the parish. This could open up a can of worms, not just with a single residence. I've got subdivisions that were incorrectly engineered that are causing problems all over the place, but we approved it. And technically, we should go in there and fix that. I think we have a duty. If we approve some of this stuff, I mean, it's not easy. But I think going with the lowest functional cost, as long as the function is the same, I would support that. I don't know if there's any other support for that. I don't know if the gentleman would accept going with the lowest functional cost in the open ditch, but I'm very concerned about the precedent this sets. We're here to make sure that drainage works, and I'm concerned that we're going to go overboard, because what happens if we have somebody with a gorgeous, brick and cast iron or wrought iron fence that flows under something that we have drainage going under, we've got to replace all that. We could look at $100,000 problem one day. And that's where it becomes a problem. I'll leave it at that for right now and see if there's any other support for that.
Continuing on with discussion, Mr. Mason.
Yeah, just one quick question, Ron. The The only reason why option A is I'm assuming what the resident wants is that just for aesthetic value, or was there any other reason why he wanted that option?
Well, I would say option A was the second alternate that the administration brought forward. They want exactly what they have out there. But we looked at a way to try to get the same cosmetic effect, but cheaper. So that's how option 1 came in. We looked at every option we can kind of look at for this area. So that's how that came about.
Okay, thank you, Ron.
Parish President.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Ron, would you please comment on some of the things you've seen entering in some of these subdivisions? We're not talking about hundreds of thousands, we're talking way more than that. You can just comment. I mean, I go in these subdivisions, you're sweating buckshot, looking at potential cost of replacing some of these things, and we've had these discussions. Would you please elaborate on that for the council, please, or the board, excuse me?
Sure. So, for instance, this was done by the request of a landowner to make his property more appeasing, and whatever reasons why. It was not necessarily a design requirement, right? He could have an open ditch, his drainage would still function. Some of these subdivisions that we see today were designed with pipes in front, behind, and on the side. They were designed that way, and part of the construction plans that were approved. So those are the ones that if they fail, we're almost liable for the design that is stamped by the parish on the construction plans. So these types of drainage scenarios along the side of the road, yes, they are concerns of the drainage of the residents, but they're not necessarily that we have to go fix them just like they are out there. Whereas in the subdivisions, you may have already had things built out. You got lawns, and rightfully so, they designed that way. So my point is, you may have to fix pipes in place in subdivisions. So with the stuff that we are already obligated to maintain and fix, if it fails, we got to look at our budget just for that, which could be, the last one we did, Dipsy remembers, in Fountain Hill, we had the slip line along the culverts. Just that one job, I think, was 200 feet of pipe, was $80,000, 60 to 80 grand, because we couldn't dig it up, we didn't have enough servitude, and houses were already built around it. So yes, this is a huge budget impact for his culvert work within the parish. So, I would caution whatever we decide to obligate ourselves to in the future. And another note, at the last meeting, you had a product failure that wasn't designed for culverts. The gentleman bought his pipe, and that whole scenario there happened because it was a product failure, but the subdivision was designed open ditch. So, I think Cody's recommendation along all those lines and the culvert policy give you guys the legislative duty or ability to decide what you want us to do or go, but we would caution you in obligating in the future.
Okay, who is next, Terry or Joe?
Terry can go first.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. I think the operative word here is the last one we did. And then that was J-Lo with her 1 million Facebook followers. I remember being reminded at the meeting. Mr. Blanchard doesn't have 1 million Facebook followers, but he's got a problem, and we can fix it. I'm willing to make the compromise to Chase's recommendation that it be the option 1, which is with the plastic as opposed to the concrete. I'm reluctantly willing, but I'm also listening to everybody here, and I kind of sense where we're going. But I would like to see us give Mr. Blanchard as much consideration as we gave the track star and her 1 million Facebook followers.
Mr. Roband and Mr. Aaron.
There's a couple things I want to point out here. The first thing is we're not going out into all these subdivisions and into all these areas and digging all this up into open ditches. I mean, that's number one cause, meaning this is a project that we're looking at having to fix. So once we get to that point of deciding, yes, it's a big enough deal that is stopping other drainage that we need to fix this, then we come to the problem of, okay, well, do we spend the extra money for the culverts? And once again, the answer to that question is yes. Now, the second part of my statement is, Michael, I believe you had asked me what, if it's aesthetics, if it's, what is the actual function of it? Now, let's take a step back, and I don't know when the culverts were put in the ground, but I would say right now to do these same culverts, like you say, it's $30,000. So let's just say when they did it was $15,000. $15,000 investment that this homeowner made based on us for his property, number one for aesthetics, but also functionality. I mean, it allows you to move on and off of the road and whatnot. I mean, it's not like we have to go out and fix everything that people tell us about. We have discretion as a board. They have discretion as what they need to do. And it's already been done, so precedent has been set. So I'm going to stick to what I said before and say I feel like it's our duty to replace what was there, meaning culvert, not the size culvert.
Go ahead, please, Mr.
Reluctantly, I speak again because this is a very difficult issue. Money-wise, where are we going to get the money for this if we do this and we move into the future and we have lots of these? One of my mind racing issues that I'm going through right now is we permit the height of houses off the ground right now. We permitted houses that are built too low. Are we setting ourselves up that based on the permit that we issued, we're going to have to start raising houses? Or are we going to be liable for houses that flood based on a permit? We can't permit something and assume it's going to last forever. It's my understanding when we permit a pipe going in the ground, are we permitting that it's going to prevent drainage forever or that you're putting it in the right way? And I'm so worried about the can of worms that this could open up. Because like I said, we have permitted houses at a BFE of 1 foot. And years down the road, these houses could all flood. And are we setting a precedent that we're going to have to go back and raise those up? I'm exceedingly concerned about that. But I'll leave it at that.
Oh, okay, Mr. Mason.
Very tense. You done, Aaron? No, I kind of want to piggyback on what Mr. Lawler said too. Is there some kind of a statute of limitations that we can maybe set to say, listen, I mean, the parish obviously has grown at a rapid rate that none of us could, 15 years ago could have ever seen happen. So, I mean, decisions we've made in the past should not keep coming back to haunt us like this. So maybe we as a board, or maybe this could even go to full council, make a decision, say, listen, a decision we made 10 years ago, 5 years ago or something really can't be held against us. So I don't have the answer. I'm not a lawyer. We do have a couple lawyers on the council, and we've had a couple lawyers that work for us. So maybe that's something we can look into as well. So I just want to throw that out there as well. Thank you.
Yeah, look, just to chime in real quick, I don't see any legal liability because we permitted. My bigger legal concern is that whatever decision you guys make, you got to be prepared to do it consistent across the board. Ron and Clint will tell you, and I think Chase sat in on a couple of those meetings when we were talking about this drainage policy. And, my biggest point that I made in all of these meetings is we need to have a defined set of factors as to when we're going to change them out and when we're not going to change them out that everybody can live with across the board so that we can stay away from making inconsistent decisions. And I know that's a really hard thing to do in these particular situations. One recommendation I did have, and it may be something you guys want to consider going back and maybe putting into the policy is, basically coming to the board and making decisions like y'all are doing right now as to, whether the parish is going to put culverts back, et cetera, but then putting all of those approved projects on a list that you guys basically do a ranking of, in the budgetary process every year, because it's just like all other parish infrastructure. I mean, you guys got to do a cost-benefit analysis and say, where's the best bang of our buck to help the most people? So, you know, you may have to do something similar with culverts. And I know this is getting complicated, but I mean, as y'all can see tonight, having to make a decision, it's a complicated issue. And I just want y'all to think it through and make sure that whatever you do, you prepare to consistently do it across the board. And I would caution you guys of using the justification of, well, we permitted, therefore we obligated to fix it, because legally, you know, that doesn't exist, you know, under the law, that obligation. So, you know, if there's other bases that you guys want to say, you know, why you want to fix it, you know, long-term maintenance cost is cheaper with culverts versus open ditch, especially when you're only talking $10,000 difference. I would much prefer you guys use that as the justification and not, you know, we permitted, so we have to put it back like in kind.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Robine.
Okay, I think we're getting a little too far off on the liability or the precedent that we're setting. And for an example, to address the house and the right-of-way that flooded, it's a whole different story and a whole different situation, because we're a drainage body and we're studying drainage and we're having to improve drainage, a project that we're already doing. So, I mean, in that case, it would be like if we were knocking down the house already anyway, which we're not. But regardless, number two, this is one of those things, like Cody just said, if we're spending $20,000, I mean, let's spend the extra $10,000. I'm not saying we're legally bound to it, or we legally have to, but if Ascension Parish can't provide that whenever it's right there, it's that simple, and it's right. It's the right thing to do. And I don't think it means we have to do it for everyone. In this particular situation, you're talking about $10,000, and it seems pretty reasonable, and that's all I have. Thank you for now.
Let's finish up with the parish president. I think we've beat it just about as far as we can go. Parish president, would you please finish up?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just would like to make a recommendation. There is an element that makes this different from other situations, and that is that our engineering department determined that this was inadequate. So there is a special element that I would recommend putting into the motion as separating this from other situations. Just a recommendation, if you're going to go with the 30,000 option.
Ms. Terry, you want to go ahead and put that in?
Well, Chase made the motion, so I would appreciate him adding that to his motion. I think that does make sense.
I'm sorry, Chase, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Come back. What would I need to add to the motion?
You would need to add that element of our engineering department, you know, recommended.
Okay. Yeah, I will add that to the motion. Our engineering department recommended this. And real quick, Jerry, I'm gonna be 2 sentences. Before we vote, no matter how we vote tonight, as a drainage board, worst case scenario, I'm hoping comes tonight, is that we get this man's ditches open and get that 24-inch in there. If we have to continue conversation on refilling the ditch, I'm okay. I worry about his home and flooding. I think we need to get it opened as soon as possible. That's my number one priority. Thank you.
Okay, and this is what we have on the board out now is option 1. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any opposition to the motion? If none, option 1 passes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Liz, I hope you have all this. You okay, Liz?
Do we need to? Okay. Yeah, we okay.
Thank you. We're going to move on to an approval. This is engineering design for Adora Group. Mr. Salvon.
And this is looking to go to Adora Group for approval to move forward a task order proposed for engineering design from Adora Group, the amount of $200,450.75 for surge protection of Marvin Road Pumping Station. And we're looking for approval to move forward with that task order against their engineering contract.
Motion.
Moved by It moved by Mr. Mason, second by Mr. Chase Melanson. Any discussion? Discussion, Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, haven't we done this in the past with BKI? We approved a contract for this exact thing? 2016?
We did. They did have a scenario, the stop logs and storm surge that BKI did look at area. They've been paid for that. One of the things that has happened since then was we ruled out the stop logs. It was just so much infrastructure had to be built to even do the stop logs out of the pump station. We got enough mechanical problems to deal with now for maintenance. So that was eliminated. The storm surge protection they proposed, we couldn't find another station that sort of had that product already in place. The field trips we took to Jefferson Parish, some of the things that we saw there, you already had storm surge protection response within Hurricane Katrina and Rita at that station over there. This product already exists, and this company has seen storm surge be built and designed already from conception to fruition. So we don't want to be a guinea pig of something that we don't really know about the true functionality of everything about it. But it's in place of what we're looking at them to look for. Our Marvin Grove is in Jefferson Parish already being utilized. So we're hoping to bring that component to the station at Marvin Grove.
How much more is this contract for? We've already spent $300,000.
No, we didn't spend any on this contract.
No,
this
but
is
how much is this going to cost?
Oh, it's $200,450, and that's if it pans out to what they proposed. It could be less than this, but this is to get the design vetted and stamped for what we're proposing to build. Once we get that deliverable, we would then be able to look for a path of getting those components built.
And my concern is the other design that we have, we don't have anything to say that it won't work, and we have a new design that we think may work, so let's get an engineer to look at it. It just seems that we're jumping around on this. We have nothing saying that our original design that we paid $300,000 for will not work. It's just that it hasn't been done elsewhere, at least in Jefferson Parish, but it may have been done other places. It just seems like $200,000 to spend on an idea that we think may work, so let's go get an engineer to look at it. That's not how we should be doing this, I don't think. I think we already have this engineered. We spent $300,000. Let's get it done. So I object to this.
But I'll say Mr. Johnny and then the parish president.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question just from the get-go. Was there an RFQ for this, and would it be subject to an engineering review committee?
Yes, the contract that we referred to went out for RFQ last year, and this company is on that retainer contract through that RFQ.
Parish president?
And this was in the budget? Ron?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they do have enough budget to cover this.
Thank you, Chair. This is the ones that had the benefit of going to Jefferson Parish. These are the slush slide gates that slide directly down and seal out the ports to offer that surge protection. A very simplified, basic mechanical structure, which didn't involve much of the catwalk removal. A lot of the piping and utilities you see on the pumping station. That other design is a swing type flap gate that has to be, the catwalk has to be removed. It's a very complicated system in our opinion. We're trying to go with something that is easy to maintain and just as efficient. But these are the ones we looked at in Jefferson Parish when we took we went on the outside and looked at just a simple design, simple crank, straight down, seal, and those are protected in case one of those pumps fail from backwater flow. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Chase?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to comment that, so this is actually a 4-port contract. It's not all just for the sluice gates and for the backwater prevention. If anybody who's who's been out to Marvin Bow for a while, y'all know on top of each motor of the motor, on top of each motor for each pump, 1 through 5, I'm sorry, we have the old capsules on top of them from before the metal building was there, decades ago. And it also works as the exhaust to get rid of the exhaust fumes for these motors. So part of this contract is to take these little rooms, little capsules, whatever you want to call them, from the pumps 1 through 5, because there's very narrow room. I want to say it's probably 2.5, maybe 3 feet around the entire pump for maintenance guys to be able to get in there. They're old, they're rusty, they're 40 years old. So this entire $200,000 isn't just for the sluice gates and the backwater. There's 4 different parts. If we have issue, we can make some amendments to where we include some and we exclude some. But being out there several times this year, talking to our DPW guys, those housings are very, very much in favor of our maintenance guys to get them gone. Let's get a new modern exhaust system. Let's get that out of our metal building. So I don't want to just squash the whole conversation based on the sluice gates. There's a few items here that I think we should consider. Thank you, Chair.
Ms. Terry?
Excuse me. Did we go back to BKI and say, we're not happy with this design? We would like for you to look at something that did not require us to do so much maintenance or did not require us to remove the catwalks. I would just, when we've already paid for one set of work, perhaps it would be less expensive to just have them modify their plan. And my second question would be, what do we do after we get this design with this project? That's going to be the next step.
Sure. I see Dean and Ron back there. Y'all want to chime in?
Yeah, I'd like to answer Ms. Terry. Yes, we did sit down with BKI, and we did tell them we did not like that design. It wasn't maintenance friendly, and we offered the slide gate design to them. They said that they did not feel that was a good design, and they wouldn't back it, so they didn't want to do it.
So was there some reason offered for why they wouldn't? I mean, I had no idea that had happened. That's why I asked. So did they have an engineering reason why they didn't think it was a good design?
Their concept was that when the gates started coming, they were going to cock and jam, and they didn't feel like they would operate smoothly. And I mean, we've got these in the parishes, in our knife gates and stuff. We know they work. But that's why we got with Adora, and we went up there and actually seen, where they do work. And they bought into our concept. And so for the parish and for maintenance wise, it's a whole lot better concept and design of what Adora is offering versus what we have with BKI.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you. Helps a lot.
Anything, Ron, that you want to add?
No, I think we covered it.
Had a second part of my question. So then what do we do next? I mean, are we going to proceed to design, from design to construction? Is that budget adequate? Let's get a more comprehensive look at this project if we can.
Well, I think from what, the parish president, what we've all looked at and has, what we've seen in Jefferson Parish, I don't have a problem with this. I'm looking at it from our maintenance side. I'm looking at it from our guys that are out there working around this. I mean, I don't want to, show light on one engineering firm and the other one, but I mean, we're getting it straight from the horse's mouth, and Dean has been around a while, so I'm gonna leave it at that. you have any other discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Malonzo.
Thank you, Chair. At this point, I'd just like to make a motion to approve all 4 parts of the contract for the entire $200,450.75.
There's a motion. There's a second by Mr. Mason. Any opposition? Any opposition? None, motion passed. We'll move on to approval with the on-grade construction. Ron?
Yeah, this is just the time extension. Their contract is up for renewal. We're looking for approval to just renew the contract, extend it for another contract term.
Motion, Chair.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Chase, second by Mr. Johnny. Any discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Johnny.
What's the value of this, Ron? Just dollars?
The ditch medium one was 7.25 million. We have a remaining balance of roughly 50,000 left on the roadside ditch digging we're talking about now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. So the discussion, any opposition? If none, motion passed. And I think we have another approval for the on-grade, the culverts. Mr. Ron?
Same thing here. This is the approval to renew and extend one more contract term for on-grade construction.
Motion to approve, Chair.
Second. Moved by Mr. Chase. Second by Ms. Terry. Any discussion? Any opposition? Not, motion passed. All right, we're gonna move into the approval of drainage contract for surveying. Mr. Ron?
Yeah, we're just doing an annual renewal of our following drainage contracts for surveying services not to exceed $200,000 shared budget between the following firms of BFM Corporation, Brian Henry Associates.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Malonzo, second by Mr. Johnny. Any discussion? Any opposition? None, motion passed. Last is the approval of the following drainage contracts for the wetland delineations. Mr. Ron?
Pretty much covered it. Approval to renew the following contracts, wetland delineation permitting not to exceed $150,000.
Motion, Chair.
Budget that yields,
Question.
Moved by Mr. Chase, second by Mr. Michael Mason. Discussion, Mr. Johnny.
Ron, is this shared also? You said in the first one that $200,000 was shared by those 5 contractors of engineering firms. Is this also the same?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, thank you.
With that, that should fit on the agenda. I appreciate everybody's patience. Thank y'all so much.
Great discussion. Thank y'all.
Y'all have a good meeting. Have a good one.
Adjourned.
Good night.
Everybody. Thank you.